today we're heading back, way back.
Yeah, back to the ancient world.
To a really fascinating text, Genesis chapter 48.
Genesis 48.
And it's all about this story of Jacob, also known as Israel, on his deathbed, basically. And he's got these grandsons, Ephraim and Manasseh.
Sons of Joseph.
Sons of Joseph, yeah. And so your sources, they lay out this whole scene of him blessing them.
Yes. The blessing. That's what we're really going to be diving into today.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting, I mean, right off the bat, what's so cool about it is that it's not just your everyday sort of, oh, good luck, kids, kind of blessing,
It's much more significant than that.
It's way more than that.
Way more going on.
And one of the things that's really striking is how Jacob, he elevates the younger son, Ephraim, over the elder, Manasseh.
Yeah, really surprising move.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're going to, try to unpack. What does that mean?
That's the mission for this deep dive.
What's going on then?
What's the significance? Why is he doing this?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, okay, just to set the scene for you, the listener, just to get us all on the same page.
Yeah.
Joseph, he's heard that his dad is ill.
Okay.
And he takes his 2 sons to go visit him.
Makes sense.
Right, like a good son would do. But what's interesting is that Jacob, he's quite frail at this point.
Oh, yeah.
And he's having trouble seeing, and in fact, the sources say he could hardly see.
Wow.
But when he's told that Joseph has arrived,
Okay.
he sits up on the bed.
So he musters his strength.
He sits up, right.
Wow.
Which shows you, the gravity.
The importance of this moment.
Yeah, this is a big deal.
Yeah.
So he sits up, and then, the first thing he does upon seeing his grandsons is he says something really, really significant.
Okay, what's that?
He says, "Now then, your 2 sons born to you in Egypt before I came to you here will be reckoned as mine. Ephraim and Manasseh will be mine, just as Reuben and Simeon are mine." So whoa.
That's a pretty big statement.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Because essentially, and maybe you can kind of elaborate on this a little bit more, but I mean, essentially he's adopting them, right?
Yeah, he's bringing them directly into his lineage. They are his sons now, which means they're going to be heads of tribes in Israel, each receiving their own inheritance. It's not exactly modern adoption, but it's like saying, you are my sons now fully.
Right. So they're basically skipping a generation.
Skipping a generation in terms of tribal lineage, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big move.
It's huge. And the sources even specify that any future children Joseph might have will still be considered under the names of Ephraim and Manasseh.
Right.
When it comes to inheritance.
So it's like he's solidifying Ephraim and Manasseh as the foundational figures for Joseph's line.
Yeah, exactly. So listener, think about that for a second. This is
Pretty significant.
This is not messing around.
Yeah.
This is a serious lineage decision here. And it makes you kind of wonder, in this period,
Right.
What were the typical expectations for inheritance?
Yeah, that's a crucial question.
Yeah, how radical was Jacob's decision in that context?
Well, I mean, throughout the ancient Near East, birth order was everything.
Okay.
Lineage, it was paramount.
Okay.
The firstborn son, they held this really privileged position when it came to inheritance, leadership, even just continuing the family name.
Gotcha.
So for Jacob to elevate his grandsons to the status of his own sons, basically putting them on par with Reuben and Simeon, his eldest.
Yeah.
That's a pretty significant departure from these norms.
Yeah.
It really underscores how much weight he's giving to Joseph's line through these 2 boys.
Yeah, and it's really a reminder that, these ancient stories, they aren't just
Not just a bunch of names and dates.
Yeah, it's not just a list of names and events.
Right.
There's real human drama here.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's personal history.
These are people making decisions based on their own experiences.
And it really shapes what happens.
Yeah.
It's this is a pivotal moment.
And we have to remember that.
And speaking of that, there's actually a really personal reason behind this decision that the text kind of hints at.
Oh.
Jacob, he reflects on the sorrow of Rachel's death.
Oh, yeah.
Near Ephrath, which is Bethlehem.
Right.
During his journey back from Padan.
That's right.
And so this wasn't just a cold...
Just some genealogical calculation.
Yeah, it wasn't just a cold genealogical calculation.
No, there's emotion here.
There's something more there.
Yeah.
So what do you think?
I think Jacob's love for Rachel
Yeah.
and the pain of losing her, those were defining events in his life.
Yeah.
And so it seems like that memory is completely intertwined with his desire to bless Joseph's sons so strongly.
Yeah.
It's possible that having gone through such loss, and the unexpected turns of life, that Jacob felt like he needed to secure Joseph's future in this really unique way.
Yeah.
Make sure his lineage would flourish.
Interesting. Okay, so Joseph has brought his sons. Jacob has declared them his own.
All right, so what happens next?
Now comes the blessing, like the actual blessing.
A moment we've been waiting for.
Yeah. So Jacob asks Joseph to bring the boys closer.
Okay.
But because his eyesight is so bad,
Right.
Joseph, naturally assuming that the older one should get like the primary blessing,
Yeah, makes sense.
arranges them according to birth order.
That's the custom.
So Manasseh the firstborn on Jacob's right, which would be the traditional place of honor.
Right. Jacob's left hand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then Ephraim the younger on Jacob's left, so Jacob's right hand.
Okay, so far so good.
Right.
Everything's going according to plan.
Yeah, everything seems normal. But this is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Because Jacob reaches out,
Yeah.
and the text really emphasizes this point. It says that he crossed his arms, placing his right hand on Ephraim's head.
The younger son.
The younger son.
Hold on, he crossed his arms.
Yeah.
That's a pretty clear signal that something unexpected is about to happen.
Yeah, it's like, whoa, wait a minute, what's going on here?
Yeah, like you said, this is where we sit up and pay attention.
Exactly, exactly. And Joseph, he definitely noticed.
Oh, I bet he did.
Because the source says that he was displeased
Yeah.
when he saw that his father's hands were crossed.
Yeah, that makes sense. He's probably thinking, wait, Dad, you're doing it wrong.
Right. And he even tries to correct him, saying, no, my father, this one is the firstborn. Put your right hand on his head.
Oh, wow.
Right? So, like, totally understandable reaction,
Totally. I mean, he's trying to make sure his firstborn gets the proper blessing,
Right.
according to the customs of the time.
Exactly.
I mean, to him, it seems like Jacob's made a mistake.
Yeah.
His eyesight's bad.
Right. Right.
He's gotten confused.
It's an honest mistake.
But Jacob's response is really firm,
Yeah.
insightful.
Yeah. What does he say?
He says, I know, my son, I know.
So it's like, he's not confused.
He's not slipping up.
This is not a slip of the hand.
This is deliberate.
This is intentional.
Yeah.
He knows exactly what he's doing.
Yeah.
And this is a sign that things are not going to go as expected.
Yeah.
He's signaling a different future for his grandsons.
Right. And then he, proceeds with the blessing itself, and he starts by invoking God Almighty, who appeared to him at Luz. Oh, wow. So he's connecting this back to those foundational promises.
Yeah, he's reminding Joseph of those promises of fruitfulness, increased numbers, the gift of the land as an everlasting possession.
Powerful stuff.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when he says God Almighty, or in the Hebrew, El Shaddai, it's often associated with God's power to bless and provide abundantly.
Right.
So that connection really reinforces the significance of what he's about to do.
Yeah, he's grounding this whole moment in the history of his relationship with the divine.
Exactly. And then he goes on to refer to the God before whom my fathers, Abraham and Isaac, walked faithfully.
It's like a lineage of faith.
Yeah, it's like he's saying, look, I'm not just making this up. This is what we do.
Passing that heritage on.
Yeah, this is who we are. And then he says, the God who has been my shepherd all my life to this day.
It's a really powerful testament to his faith.
Yeah, it's like this is his life story.
And he wants his grandsons to know that.
And he's not done.
Oh, there's more.
He also mentions the angel who has delivered me from all harm.
Wow.
And he asks for that same protection for his grandsons.
So he's asking for their safety, their well-being.
Yeah. And then he says, may they be called by my name and the names of Abraham and Isaac.
So they're being brought into this line of inheritance.
Totally.
Not just material, it's spiritual too.
Exactly. And then he expresses the hope that they will increase greatly on the earth. It's material, spiritual, it's about their future growth, their identity.
Yeah,
It's a lot packed into just a few words.
absolutely. So he's formally recognized Ephraim and Manasseh as his own sons, established their place in the tribes, and now he's giving them this blessing that's going to shape their destinies.
Exactly.
But we can't forget the crossed hands.
Right. That's the big question.
Yeah, it's the crucial part.
Yeah.
The part that Joseph questioned.
Exactly. And Jacob, he addresses it directly. When Joseph tries to correct him,
Yeah.
he says, I know, my son, I know. He too will become a people, and he too will become great.
So he's acknowledging Manasseh.
Yeah, he's not diminishing him.
He's going to be significant.
Right.
But then he says, nevertheless, his younger brother will be greater than he, and his descendants will become a group of nations.
And that's the key.
That's the heart of it.
That's the thing.
Despite the birth order, Jacob is prophesying a bigger future for Ephraim.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder, like, why?
Right. Why is this so important? Especially in the context of later Israelite history.
Yeah.
Some people think this foreshadows the prominence of the tribe of Ephraim in the northern kingdom. I wonder if your sources touch on those later developments.
Yeah.
That could give us even more to think about.
Yeah.
But regardless, it's a clear statement that Ephraim's going to be a major player.
Yeah, and to really hammer home the point, the source says, he blessed them that day and said, "In your name will Israel pronounce this blessing. May God make you like Ephraim and Manasseh." So he put Ephraim ahead of Manasseh.
He's making it official.
It's official. Ephraim is first.
It's a complete reversal of the typical birth order blessing.
Totally.
I mean, this sets a precedent. It says that divine favor, future impact, it's not always about who's born first.
Yeah.
God's plans can sometimes go beyond our expectations.
Yeah, and it makes you think, about times in your own life, listener.
Or in history.
Or in history where the less likely candidate,
Yeah.
rises to prominence.
The underdog.
Yeah, the underdog.
Yeah. What does this story tell us about destiny
Yeah.
and about the potential for surprising outcomes?
It's a lot to chew on.
It is.
Okay, so after this pretty huge blessing,
Yeah.
Jacob, he has some final words for Joseph specifically.
Yep.
He announces that, he's going to die soon.
Yeah. Makes sense. I mean, he is on his deathbed.
Right, that's kind of the whole setup here.
Yeah.
But he reassures Joseph
Okay.
by saying, God will be with you and take you back to the land of your fathers.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, so it's like echoing that promise of the land.
Giving him comfort,
Yeah, like, don't worry.
even in the face of loss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's this kind of enigmatic final gift.
What's that?
He says, "And to you I give one more ridge of land than to your brothers, the ridge I took from the Amorites with my sword and my bow."
Oh, wow. That's interesting. So it's like a specific inheritance beyond what he'd get as one of the 12 sons,
Right.
a tangible symbol of Jacob's favor.
Yeah, like a little extra.
Yeah.
But it's almost like a little bit of a militaristic element thrown in there.
It is, isn't it? Like, it adds this whole other layer to the story.
Yeah.
It suggests that Jacob had to fight for what he had,
Yeah.
and now he's passing that on to Joseph.
Yeah.
It makes you think about the different ways that we see power and inheritance playing out, even today.
It does.
Like, Jacob's challenging those traditional values around birth order.
Right.
But we still see so many societal structures based on those same hierarchies.
Yeah.
What can we learn from this story about questioning those norms?
It's a big question.
It is.
So, just to wrap up for you, listener, what we've really explored here in this deep dive is this really fascinating story of Jacob not only adopting Joseph's sons, making them tribes in the future Israel.
Right. Giving them that status.
Yeah, but then intentionally flipping the script, putting the younger Ephraim before Manasseh.
And he meant to do it.
Yeah.
It wasn't a mistake.
It wasn't just an old man.
It was a deliberate act.
Yeah.
And it was signifying Ephraim's future importance in the Israelite nation.
Yeah, and it sets a precedent.
It does.
It really makes you think about how birth order isn't the only thing that matters.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sometimes greatness, divine favor, it comes in unexpected ways.
Yeah, so this deep dive into Genesis 48, it's really about inheritance.
It's about blessing.
It's about, divine will,
Yeah.
It's about questioning those traditional expectations.
And about how leadership can emerge in the most surprising ways.
Yeah.
This story highlights a choice,
Yeah.
a deliberate choice,
Yeah?
with huge implications for the future of Israel.
Yeah, it really makes you think. Are there other instances in history, maybe even in your own life, where someone who wasn't supposed to be great ended up leading or having a huge influence?
Right.
How do choices that defy expectations shape the future?
It's a question worth pondering.
It really is.
Yeah.
So thanks for joining us on another deep dive.
Yeah, always a pleasure.
And we'll see you next time.